Call the police. He is threatening me. Susan Baker's voice cracked across my front porch like a whip, her finger jabbing at me while neighbors peeked through blinds. My crime? I had said, no thank you, when she demanded my family join her HOA and hand over $450 a month. That was it. 2 polite words. 20 minutes later, red and blue lights painted the snow on my lawn. My 8-year-old daughter was sobbing behind the Christmas tree, and my 5-year-old son clutched his mother's leg. All because I refused to pay money I did not owe to a woman who had never been invited inside my gate. 8 months earlier, in October, my wife Laura and I carried the last box into our new home on Willow Creek Lane. I'm David Mitchell, 38, senior financial analyst with the IRS, 15 years chasing tax cheats and protecting whistleblowers. Laura is an ER physician. Our kids are Grace and Ben. We had saved for a decade to buy this place. Quiet streets, mature oaks, the kind of suburb where kids still ride bikes to the corner market. On day 3, a thick manila envelope waited in the mailbox, heavy cardstock, expensive serif logo, Willow Creek Homeowners Association. My professional radar pinged immediately. Real volunteer HOAs do not print like Fortune 500 companies. Inside were quarterly statements, a fee schedule jumping from $150 to $450 a month, 52 rules down to the quarter-inch of allowable grass, fines that started at $100 and climbed fast. Most telling, nothing proved our deed was inside any legal HOA boundary. I spent the evening in county records, state registry, IRS exempt.org database. Nothing. 0 covenants, 0 filings, 0 nonprofit status. This was a private tax on my block, and Susan Baker was the collector. 3 days later, I crossed the street with my printouts. Susan's house gleamed, fresh paint, new cameras, a 2023 Lexus in the drive, landscaping that screamed 6 figures. Retired school administrator, she claimed. I laid the documents on her porch table. Susan, there is no covenant on my deed, no state entity, no IRS exemption. You are running an unregistered business. She adjusted her diamond watch, smiled the way board presidents do when they think the vote is already fixed. Most folks prefer to keep the peace, David. The message was velvet over steel. I started a file that night, the same way I build cases at work. Timestamps, photos, witness notes. Susan had been at this 8 years, pulling in close to $400,000 a year, untaxed. She had just poked the wrong bear. The pressure campaign was textbook. Weeks 1 and 2. Letters on embossed letterhead to my office and Laura's hospital, accusing us of community sabotage. Weeks 3 and 4. A neighborhood Facebook group with 800 members posted grainy photos of our dry lawn, kids' bikes on the walkway, audio clips edited to sound like shouting. Week 5. City Hall flooded with anonymous complaints, noise, zoning, suspicious packages. Week 6. December 21st, 8:30 in the evening. We were stringing lights on the tree, kids laughing, when 2 patrol cars rolled up silent. Lights strobed across the snow. Officer Ramirez looked embarrassed. Multiple calls about domestic violence and possible fraud from this address. Susan stood on the sidewalk flanked by 3 recruits, arms folded, manila folder thick as a phone book. Grace saw the lights and burst into tears. Ben hid behind the tree. I opened the door in slippers. Susan handed Ramirez her evidence packet, glossy charts, corporate headers, the works. Her mistake. The packet screamed business, not volunteer group. Ramirez scanned it under the streetlight and frowned. Ma'am, this looks like a commercial operation. Susan's smile slipped. The officers left once they realized the call was nonsense, but the damage was done. Phones recorded from every window. Grace asked if Daddy was a criminal. I picked up one of Susan's scattered financial pages blowing across the lawn. $32,850 collected last month. No tax filings. Game on. January I worked public records only, Saturdays in the county basement, printouts highlighted in 3 colors. 73 houses times 450 equaled $394,000 a year, mandatory IRS filing territory. Susan spotted my research and hired a private eye. By February, she knew I worked for the IRS and flipped the script. I was the rogue agent harassing a civic leader. She lawyered up, filed a federal complaint for abuse of power, doctored emails, coached neighbors. 3 suits from internal affairs showed up at my office, escorted me past staring cubicles, took my badge, suspended me without pay. My desk sat empty, nameplate face down. Colleagues avoided the coffee machine when I walked in. Susan gave a tearful local TV interview on her perfect porch, American flag waving, binder of grievances beside her. Protest signs sprouted on my lawn, "Stop IRS harassment." Grace watched from the upstairs window, confused and scared. Laura and I talked mortgage numbers at 2 in the morning. For the first time in 15 years, I wondered if the system I served had turned on me. Here is the irony Susan never saw. Her complaint forced the IRS to investigate my original claims. Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration opened a parallel file. Forensic accountants tore into her books. 8 years, 2.85 million unreported, 1.2 million in tax due before penalties. Her own glossy evidence became federal exhibits. June 15th, 7:30 a.m. I was pouring coffee when the street filled with unmarked SUVs, IRS windbreakers, FBI jackets, evidence van. Susan opened her door in a silk robe to grab the paper. It slipped from her hand. Her mug shattered on the step. Special Agent Ramirez, no relation to the patrol officer, stepped forward. Federal agents. We have arrest and search warrants. 6 agents, 2 local uniforms, forensic techs in white coveralls. Neighbors emerged in pajamas, phones up, but this time they were filming justice, not intimidation. They cuffed Susan on her own porch, the same spot where she had orchestrated my humiliation. Cash bundles, laptops, that leather binder, everything boxed and tagged. 180,000 in 20s on her kitchen table, pocket change compared to what she owed. Grace and Ben watched from our window, wide-eyed but no longer afraid. Susan pled to 4 felonies, 6 years in federal prison, 2.8 million restitution, assets seized, permanent ban from any HOA roll. 73 families got refunds through a restitution fund. Willow Creek formed a real HOA, voluntary, $95 a month, professional management, open books. Kids ride bikes again, Mrs. Larson hosts coffee on Tuesdays. The Facebook group shares casserole recipes. I was exonerated with a commendation, promoted to regional coordinator, invited to lecture at the academy. My case is now mandatory reading, whistleblower excellence. Laura got a raise. Grace tells her friends daddy catches tax thieves. The broken coffee mug shards are gone from Susan's step, replaced by a young family's tricycle. Some doors only open with evidence. Susan thought she held the keys to the neighborhood. Turns out the IRS held the master set all along. What do you think? Was the system worth trusting, or should I have paid the $4.50 and looked away? When everyday injustice knocks, do you open the door or call the feds? Drop your stand in the comments, especially on power, abuse, and whether ordinary folks can still beat the bullies without losing everything first.